Hello everyone and welcome to this week's behind the scenes devlog video, and this week should be a pretty good week. I've got lots of time for development. I'm going to be working on the animals this week, so it should be a bit more interesting than the last few weeks. I'm going to be doing some work on their behaviour and AI, so I'm looking forward to that, and I should have lots to show you this week. So it's bright and early on Monday morning, I'm just about to get started, and as always I'll show you what I'm up to later in the day. So the plan this week is to completely finish off more of the plants and animals for the game, and I've got a couple of lists here, one for the plants, one for the animals, and I've just been going through these one by one, and for each species I'm just finishing off absolutely everything, all the settings, anything to do with the model, all the behaviours, and once I've completely finished that species I mark it green in the list, and basically once all these names are green the game will basically be done. So this morning I'm starting off with the duck species, and I've just been implementing a new eating animation which allows them to eat the seaweed off the bottom of the water, and you can see that happening here. Obviously I've only just started work on this, so there's a lot more to do, but basically the ducks are going to dive down under the water in order to be able to reach the seaweed. 10:05 now, and I've been doing some more work on this eating animation which you'll see in a second with this duck. It's just about to dive down. As you can see that I've now changed the rotation so it looks like they're diving downwards, and I might also add a kind of wobbling movement so that it looks like they're swimming down, but it already looks kind of cute. It is 12 o'clock now, and I've just been finishing off everything to do with the ducks, tweaking their colour, setting all of their environmental preferences, and I've just been sorting out some stuff to do with the river biome and making sure that the seaweed can grow in it and all sorts of things like that. So I'm pretty much finished with the ducks now. I was also just updating some of the codes for the environmental factors, especially to do with the disliked species environmental factor, because the range for that was a bit strange. So now I'm going to finish off all of the settings for the seaweed so that I can tick that plant off the list, and then I'll move on to the next animal. Just been doing the settings, environmental preferences, breeding requirements, and breeding trees for some more of the seaweed species, and slowly making my way through this list. And next I'm going to have some lunch, and then I'm going to do some work on the fish. So most of the fish are now completely finished, and you can see them swimming around here, but now I actually have to go off and get my racket fixed because I broke a string last week. Finally today I'm working on the turtles, or tortoises, I'm not really sure which is which. But I've just been doing some work on their movement, allowing them to swim, like you can see this one doing here, and I've also just been tweaking the model a bit, but there's still quite a bit to do with the turtles, so I'm going to be working on them for the rest of the day, and probably a bit tomorrow morning as well. It is 10:30 on Tuesday morning, and I've pretty much finished off everything to do with the turtles now. So they now lay eggs and hatch from eggs when they're born. They also now do the diving eating animation to eat seaweed, and of course I've also finished off all of their settings and environmental preferences. Next up today, I've just been doing a very quick bit of editing for this week's devlog video. I'm trying to keep on top of it all through the week this week, instead of having to do it all at the weekend. But now I'm going to get back to working on the plants and trying to get a few more of them crossed off the list. All afternoon today I've just been slowly making my way through this list of all the plants and the trees, and just adding some finishing touches to some of them. So for example, I've been adding the particle effects for the death animations for the trees, and just doing the final settings for the plants, like how many food points they give, and also just tweaking some colours when the colours have been a bit off. Nothing particularly exciting, it's all been a little bit boring, but it's all got to be done, and I'm getting through them slowly. But for now, I'm going to stop and make some dinner. Just finishing off the evening with a bit of editing and also comment answering and email answering, just the usual stuff. And I also had time to do, I think, 2 or 3 more plants from the list. Good morning everyone, it is Wednesday morning, another horrible rainy day. The weather this summer has been pretty bad so far. And today I'm going to be working mostly on animal species, just going through that list and finalising a few more species. And I'm going to be starting off today by working on the goat species. 10 now, and I've been making good progress on the goats this morning. There's not too much left to do with them, but I've also been doing quite a bit of work on plants that produce fruit, because I found there were a few issues with them. So firstly, I made it possible for the goats to eat the fruit directly off the plant, like you can see them doing here with this berry bush. And I also now made the rate at which the plant produces fruit dependent on how happy the plant is with its environment. So the happier it is, obviously the faster it produces fruit. So the goats are now completely finished. I just finished setting their environmental preferences and setting up the breeding tree for the goats. So that's all now done. I can cross them off the to-do list, and I've also been working on a couple of other species which I can cross off the to-do list now, such as the guinea pigs. They were pretty much already done, so that wasn't too tricky. And also this new tropical fish here, although I did realise that I now need some new seaweed. I need a new seaweed plant that can grow in tropical areas. So I'm going to have some lunch now, and then after lunch I'll get started with making a new model for that. As you can see, I finished making the models for this new tropical seaweed species, and I'll be adding that into the game in a bit. But first I need to go off and collect my racket because they've finished restringing it. Back to work now, and I've just added that new species of seaweed into the game, which you can see growing under the water here. And I've also just been finalising another couple of plants and getting them crossed off the to-do list. Last up this afternoon I've been working on the frog species and actually also the toad species because they're pretty similar. And for now I've just been doing the settings and the boring stuff for the frog, but tomorrow I'm going to start working on a new behaviour for the frog which will allow it to catch insects like bees and butterflies, and it's going to be able to do that by jumping at them and catching them in mid-air. It is 9 o'clock on Thursday morning now, and the sun's actually decided to make an appearance today, which is lovely. And today, or at least for the morning, I'm going to be working on the frogs. First up with the frogs, I've been working on how they're going to jump at insects in order to catch them, and I've kind of implemented this in the movement code because there's already a lot of code for bouncing in there, but I needed to be able to specify the starting velocity of the jump so that I can calculate it to make sure that it aims at the insect. So I've just implemented that, and now if I press the F key you can see that it forces it to do a jump in a certain direction that I've specified, and I could specify any direction and speed, and this will allow me to have another component which calculates where the insect is, how the frog needs to jump, and then it will tell the movement component to jump in that specific manner, like this. Next up today, I've been working on the component for the frogs, which is actually going to do the jumping at the insects and trying to catch them. And at the moment, all it does is every 15 seconds or so, it tests to see if there's an insect nearby, and if it finds one, then it jumps at it. Well, at the moment it doesn't jump at it. You'll see in a minute, it just jumps up in the air. But that's the forced jump that I was talking about earlier, and obviously I need to actually calculate the starting velocity, and then I can make it jump at the insect in the correct direction. Just been doing more work on the insect catching stuff for the frogs. So now every 15 seconds or so, again, they just try and find a nearby insect, and if they find a nearby insect, then they now start doing the insect catching AI. And in the insect catching AI, they first go towards the target, and if they get close enough to the target or close enough to the butterfly, then they will jump at the butterfly. And I still need to do the calculations for calculating the velocity of that jump, but you can see that happening in the game here. So this frog is chasing the butterfly, and when it gets close enough, it tries to kind of jump at it. Quarter past 12 now, and I've been trying to work out how to calculate the initial velocity of the jump so that the frog ends up catching the butterfly most of the time. But for now I need to stop and have an early lunch, because in a bit I'm going to be going off to tennis. Back to work on the frogs now, and I've started to make a bit of progress with the maths here. I found some useful resources online, and I've managed to get this to work. The frogs are pretty good at catching the butterflies when they're on the floor, but when they're flying around in the air, the frogs, well, they don't take the butterfly's velocity into account, so they often miss. Occasionally they get lucky, but most of the time they're not very accurate. So obviously I've still got a bit of work to do on this, but for now I'm going to stop because a few friends are coming over and we're all going to cook some Korean food together. Back to work on the frog jumping calculations this morning, and I've been able to make them a bit more accurate now by taking the butterfly's velocity into account. So the frog now jumps at where it thinks the butterfly is going to be instead of jumping at where the butterfly currently is, because obviously when it gets there the butterfly will have moved. So the frogs now actually catch the butterflies pretty much all of the time, which is a slight problem because they wipe out the butterfly population pretty quickly. So I need to find some sort of compromise. Next up today, I've just been making a few improvements to the insect catching system. So for example, I've now made sure that only adult frogs go and try and catch butterflies. Also, they only try to catch adult butterflies. They won't go after the caterpillars because that would just be way too easy and it would wipe out the butterfly population even quicker. And I've also made the time between attempts a bit longer to give the butterflies a bit more of a chance to repopulate. Just quickly been making a change to the sleeping AI because there was a little bit of a problem with animals starving while they were sleeping, because some animals sleep for quite a while and the sleeping AI has a higher priority than the eating AI, which means that they'll just starve while they're sleeping, they won't bother getting up. So I've just made a change now that if they're really hungry, they will actually get up and go and get some food to make sure that they don't starve. Finally this morning, I've just been getting back to this list, going through it and finalising a few more species. So this afternoon today I'm just going to be doing editing, and I'll probably be doing some editing tomorrow as well. So for this week that's pretty much going to be it. It's been a good week, I got quite a lot done, and I'm hoping to finish off this list of species in the next few weeks, so definitely in August I should be finished with all the species. And then after that, I want to go through all the UI and tidy everything up to do with the UI. That will take a week or two. Then there are a few more little updates and improvements and features that I have to add, which shouldn't take too long. And then after that, all I'll have left to do is to optimize some of the engine. There are some things that I want to change, add a few more graphical features, and polish everything up and get it ready for release. So at the moment, I think I'm still on track for a release around the end of this year. Hopefully I can stick to that, But yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you all next time.